Hey guys, happy Thursday. Okay. Yesterday, maybe the day before that, I had asked which mat you guys wanted to see. It's much easier to do that as a post than to do it when you're actually live. Lesson learned. After this one, we'll go back to shimmers. So the vote was for Happy. And this is like, I love this color. This was the first mat that they launched and I was super excited about it because I really love grays. And I really love grays that have kind of like a hint of lavender to them. And like, it is very much a gray, but I don't know, it's like a coolie sort of gray. And when you put it on, it doesn't, even though it's like a matte and it looks like it's like one color, there's still some sort of dimension to it, if that makes sense. So when this launched, I was really super impressed with it. I was like, oh yeah, gray. Like I like palette too. I wear a lot of gray clothes, especially in the winter. I like gray eye makeup. I'm going to go for it. And then when I actually got it, it turned out that it was much even like neater than what I thought it was going to be in real life. So it won by one vote. There's a lot of bittersweet and amused fans, so I suspect that that one will be coming up next, but we're going to go back to sparkles in between. So this is going to be my one shade of the day with my cream eyeshadow brush. Bissy, I've had a ton of messages asking me, is she okay? How did your night go? La la la. So basically, last night, for anybody who doesn't know, I was doing a live with a mask and I was talking about a present that my Y sister bought me. And there was like a crash in the middle of it, the way that there always is when I'm doing lives. And I went and checked and she dumped water all over the floor and I was like, you know, what's the deal? And Nula's like, oh, she bit your plant. So in the early evening, I guess maybe I should have started the story there. She ripped two of the great big like stems off of my ZZ plant. And it's got a long name. It's native to Kenya. I can't think of what it's called. Like it's a super long, 2Z long names. Everybody just calls them ZZ plants. They're really easy to grow. They don't need a lot of light. They don't need a lot of water. You can pretty much ignore them and they look really super cool. She grabbed two of them and she was like, wow, like a wild like beast. And then when she let them go, they were just hanging. So I cut them off. Right online, you can propagate them if you just put them in relatively dry soil. It's going to take quite a while if you don't live, like if you don't have a greenhouse, which obviously my house is not a greenhouse in northern Alberta in December. But it said like in about 9 months, you probably will have new roots and like new growth on your plant. Just poked myself in my eye with my own finger. Oh, that really actually kind of hurt. So pulled it all out, cut them off sharp. And then it said to let them sit and kind of callus over before you put them in, the medium. So I had them sitting on the counter when I went live. And at some point during my live, her and Nula in the other room, Sarika was up on the counters, which are quite high. And she was, I guess, waving them like a wild person, which is like totally not, totally not a shocker for her. And she put it in her mouth and she bit it. And then when she took it out, she went for water. So I finished my live, even though I was like, oh God, like, and I felt sick. If you go back and you watch live, you can definitely tell, like, post baby, it takes me a little bit more to calm down. So she was fine. She's playing upstairs with her sister. I go up there and I'm Googling it, and Google says the plant's toxic, but Google says that every house plant most people own is toxic. Aloe is toxic. So I was like, okay, that's really not that helpful. Like, what's the actual ingredient in it? So I ended up finding the ingredients. It's an oxalate, which is basically the same thing that makes spinach and rhubarb toxic. So then talked to Poison Control, and they were like, yeah, oxalates at high quantities are toxic, but it's very rare for a toddler or, good morning, Sue. Very rare for a toddler or an animal to actually poison themselves because it's so noxious when you bite it. Apparently it feels like glass shards, hot glass shards. So it had been calloused over, and so it wasn't like dripping like the sap and like the juice that's in the plant. It was relatively dry. But when she bit it, she would have had some go into her mouth, and it was on her tongue. So they were like, if you can get her to have sips of water, if you can wipe her tongue off, even though you can't see them, it might help move some of it along. She wouldn't drink anything. She would literally spend the better part of 20 minutes just playing like this. And just like drooling, because every time she put her tongue back in her mouth, I'm thinking that because it was warm in her mouth, it made it like worse feeling. So anyways, they did the whole rundown on what to, I'm worried about S, but I need that plant. I'm torn with my feelings right now. Nicole, it's a pretty awesome plant. Where did I get that one? I got that one, at a garden center that's out in Sexsmith, and yeah, it's pretty cool, but they're pretty available. Good morning, Brenda. I didn't see you. Hello, Jennifer. How are you guys on Thursday? We're now post hump night. So she doesn't have any like the symptoms of anything to do with like poisoning. So I'm just like, you know what, maybe I'll get her to try to go to sleep and see if it makes a difference. And so I've been talking to Sue, and she was just like, well, I have one of those, and now I want to kind of taste it and see like what it's like. So anyways, killing myself laughing, because Sue, I'm literally like, I'm 3%, you need to get, I think she was in the shower with the tub. I'm like, you need to get out, you need to get dressed, you need to like lick this so I know what it's like. I threw mine out because I was mad. My 2 cut pieces, I just shoved them in the garbage. For the record, if anybody wants to know how the propagating that's going to go. Now, last night I was so like peeved, I just like slammed them both in the garbage and shut the lid, and I was done. So she like takes a video of her like licking it. And yeah, it's kind of horrible. And it lasts actually quite a long time. This morning, she actually said that it still feels like there's like a little burnt spot on her tongue. So Serica ate a few little Cheerios, but I think her tongue still is a little sore. It's not as, like last night it was quite swollen and quite red. And now today, yeah, it looks pretty much normal, and she's fine. So actually the biggest freak out, because I stay pretty calm. That's only the second time I've ever had to call poison control. The first time was when Aislinn managed to find a lid from Murphy's oil soap and put it on her mouth. And then I read the container, and it said something about it interfering with the ability to breathe. So I called them, and I was like, oh my God. And they were like, yeah, like she's fine. They're like, it's not good for a person or anything like that, but they're like, give her something to drink, she should be fine. The concern with the lungs is if they tip it back and they inhale it because it's an oil. So I was like, oh, okay. So every time, like for the record, you get scared, nervous about anything, call poison control, because I swear to God, they will always bring you down a notch. Now this morning, Jason calls and he says, so how was your night? I actually kill every plant. Nicole, it actually shocks me about you. I've never had a Christmas cactus, so I don't know how hard they are, but you should believe Sue, because Sue's good. She's good with plants. My ZZ just sits in the corner half in the dark. The only thing that kills my plant is apparently my toddler, so I think you'll be good to go. So Jay called, he says, how was your night? What's up? It reminds me of one time an Advil caplet popped in my mouth. Yeah, I can't relate to that, but ugh. Ew. So he calls me. I'm just wondering if I actually brought this high enough up. I might not have brought this high enough up on my little hoodies here. We might have to see where this is going. It's set because this goes on like a powder, or out on like a cream, sorry, but it sets to a powder. So I'm just going to go in and buff along the line the way I always do. But I'm going to have to try to bring that up, I think, a little bit so that it doesn't disappear. We may have to go back in and add a little bit more. So I told him, I was like, oh yeah, day was, more or less good, kind of uneventful in the evening, because he called me at, I don't know, like about 4:30. And then I said, and then Sarah correct my ZZ plant, and he's like, oh, well, like that's not a shocker, because she's known for liking the plants I like, and the ZZ plant is very cool looking. She's never, for the record, wrecked anything to do with the spider plant. Hey, don't touch the printer. Go see Nula. So she, I said, so then she bit it, and so I called poison control and blah, 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 blah. And I tell him the whole story. And he literally hits this call button, and he's just like, oh my God, why wouldn't you call me? La, 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 la. I was like, because he was on location. He goes to work, right? Like he was on location at work. I don't even know if he has service. I don't even know if he knows if he has service. But like, long story short, I was like, why? Stop fooling with the printer. Just rip the cord out of the wall. That's what I do when it starts to spurt paper everywhere. Did you shut it off?
Yeah.
Oh, well, ripping the cord out of the wall works too. I'm so good with technology. He's like, oh my God, I would have come home. I'm like, for what? So that you could see her sleep? Like, I'm like, it was fine. I've got it. Like, I mean, could you imagine if I had to call Jason every time we had a little tiny crisis in our household? Oh my God. I'm like, it was fine. I'm like, if they had said you need to take her to the emergency room, I would have taken her to the emergency room and called you from the hospital. But like, long story short, so I need a little bit more up on my hoodie. So I'm just like literally going along and I'm just like tapping with the end of my brush to give a little bit up there. Yeah, like I'd have called you from the hospital and told you. And he's like, is she okay now? And I'm like, sent her a picture of her like this morning and doing her shenanigans. I'm like, she's fine. Like, she's fine. She's fine. So, yeah. It's just so funny how somebody, Brenda, yeah, first time. It's so funny how somebody who has so little, what's the word? Self-preservation for themselves in terms of the decisions they've made and the stuff that they've done. That somebody with so little self-preservation can get so paranoid about something to the degree that's like he doesn't think I can handle it. It's like, well, there's 4 of them. And, you know, none of them have lost a body part or a life yet. I've actually ever had to take my kids to the hospital once, and it was Nola, and she was really sick. She scraped her knee playing at the park, like kids do, a zillion times. Took her home, cleaned it up, whatever, didn't really think anything of it. 3-4 days later, we're back at the park, we're playing, and I'm just noticing she's kind of breathless. She's not really, you know, she's not playing full stop the way that she usually did. It was kind of warm because it was going into spring, and she had been, when she had actually scraped herself, she actually scraped herself through her jeans, and it was on rock, and, or no, actually, oh, sorry, stretch pants. She was wearing like leggings, not jeans, because I'm like, no, that wouldn't have worked. What am I thinking? But she was, for the first time, the day that we were then back, she was playing in capris, and so we played, and she, you know, she wasn't feeling good, and it was kind of warm because it was kind of one of those first like sort of spring days in GP, and took her home and made everybody supper, and I was afraid that she'd gotten too much sun because Nuala of all my kids is the most sensitive to sun. So I made her drink like 2 great big things of coconut water, and she still didn't really perk up. She didn't eat. Then the kids were watching a movie, so like, okay, how about you guys just take it easy? And when she ended up not wanting to watch a movie, she just wanted to go lay in her bed, which I was like, was really weird. And so I was like, okay. So then I went to get her ready for bed. I was like, let's just get you undressed. And I looked at her knee, and it was like pink and like kind of swollen and bumped up, and I completely forgot about it. And there was a red line going up her thigh towards her heart. So I was like, Jay, because he was home. I was very pregnant with Erica. I was like, yeah, you need to go to the hospital with her like right now. And yeah, don't leave until they give her intravenous antibiotics because she's septic. Because once I saw the line, I was like, oh God, her heart was racing. Her breathing was still not right for a kid that should have been at rest. I'm like, yeah. So they ended up taking her in, and they moved her in right away and got her an IV right away. And they had her over like for a few hours. They hit her twice. And then the next day she had to go back. She went back to outpatients twice with a catheter in to get intravenous still 2 more times. And then they put her on like a daily antibiotic for about another 5 days. Scariest experience of my life. And that's the only, like, they almost never go to the hospital, but when they do, it's been like a big deal. Who cares about self-preservation with kids falling? Yeah. Like, to him, it just makes me so, it's so funny. Dave is the same way. He panics about every little thing with Isabella. He likes to act tough. Oops. But he's totally mush when it comes to her. See, my family's not in the ER. My boys break, slice, dislocate. Well, yeah, they all play football, though, right? Yeah, Laura. Well, and then Laura, like it was just she didn't even cry when she scraped it. Like that was the weird. She was just like, oh, I scraped my knee. Like she didn't even come home. And I'm like, oh, no big deal. Like there's a couple little pieces of what looked like rock in it. Kind of pulled those out. She wasn't very happy with that piece. Peroxide it all out. Whatever. Polysporin the pieces that looked kind of icky, covered it up. Whatever. The next day she's in the bath. She's like, I don't want this Band-Aid anymore. Rips it off. We totally didn't even think about it. And then it had gotten an infection and it was going up. It was like, oh, it was horrible. Horrible, 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 horrible. And that was it. So last night was fun. I didn't sleep really super well. I kept getting up and checking on her. I actually, word to the Scentsy diffusers. They have a light, they have LED, you can change the color of them, but they also have high, low, and candle flicker. And I put mine with the white. I have one that's called it's a white crackly looking shade in my room. I put it on the low light, and I literally, that over Nula's sleeping in the middle of my floor right now because she's having sleepovers. I could actually sleep. It was low enough that I could sleep, but I could still see Serica in the bed because I kept, just kind of waking up and making sure that she was okay. But they said after the first 20 minutes, because it's an irritant, so it can irritate their ability to swallow if they get enough of it down their throat, or their ability to breathe if they breathe the sap into their lungs. So watching her for the first little bit, but she was fine, and then she wanted to nurse and was fine. And I mean, they get a ton of calls actually about houseplants because they're like, most houseplants are toxic. Anything generally with a shiny leaf has some level of toxicity, and they're like, some of them are really bad. Poinsettias, they said this time of year, because poinsettias are one of the worst. And a lot of people don't realize that it's toxic to both pets and children. And some of them come in fun colors and, whatever. It's this looks like fun. So she's okay today. They said she may get diarrhea depending on how much she actually ate. I don't think she actually ate any. I think she just bit it and then dropped it. So far she's fine. Luckily she wears diapers. But we're about to find out if she's like me and she likes her lessons more or less the easy way. She does something once and she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. Or if she's more like her dad, who likes his lessons the hard way. And we'll know. I'm hoping that now she'll leave my plants alone. She'll quit ripping the leaves off. She'll quit biting things. Because she's actually very orally, bites things, puts things in her mouth all the time. For how old she is, I feel like she puts things in her mouth a lot. So, we'll see. And we're off to go see cats again today because I was approved by Bandage Paws to get a cat. But when the woman called, she's like, the good news is, she's like, you're that pre-application piece, because she has to interview you and ask you a few questions. What would you do if your animal was wrecking things in your house? I'm like, oh, like my kids. I don't own any nice stuff. But she's like, so far it looks like your application is good. I'm not seeing any red flags. The bad news is both of the cats that you guys liked are both gone. So we're going to go see if we can find somebody else that we fall in love with today before Kumon. And Bandage Paws right now actually has a whack of cats that they're trying to find homes for. A whack of cats. A whack of cats. So if you've been thinking about adopting a cat, now would be a good time. So they're kind of trying to try to get as many of them placed in forever homes before Christmas as possible. Because the holidays is a lot tougher for them with fostering and stuff too. With more people away. Convince Sean for you, Brenda? I don't know if I'm any better at convincing Sean of anything. How about you just do it like I do? In the application and in the interview, the question that they did not ask was, do you have your partner's permission to do this? I'm so like, Jason's not a huge cat fan, Nicole, actually, because he had said, yeah, go ahead and do it. And then he retracted what he had said. And I had, of course, already said to Nuala, we're allowed to go do it. So I was a little bit poo-poo with him. And then I spoke to Alicia Santaguida, and she's like, yeah, my husband kind of felt the same way about our dog. Oops, sorry, low power. My husband kind of felt the same way about our dog. And then she was like, long story short, I went and got her anyways, you know, and he loves her now. So if I were you, I'd just go do it. And then Brenda basically said the same thing. I would just go do it. So then when he ended up calling, I was like, yeah, like, I'm kind of disappointed that you're retracting this. And he's like, well, you know, I was like, what's your rationale? And he's like, well, what if we go somewhere? I'm like when we always go somewhere now and my friend looks after them? You mean like that if we go somewhere? Because don't get me wrong, my dog is a real royal pain in the butt. I love the dog. I love the dog. Am I ever going to have another one? No. No. I'm pretty safe to say to you guys right now, I am 99.9% like sure that I will never own another dog in my entire life. Because I'm not somebody that at 8 o'clock in the morning when it's pitch black out and it's minus 40 really wants to go walk a dog. Now, maybe if I lived in a different house and I had a backyard and, you know, all of that, even then, I can do the cat litter box, no problem, but I gag as soon as I have to clean up dog poop. Like, gag. So, is that something I'm probably ever doing again? No, probably not. My kids really love the dog. And we made a commitment to the dog, so we will keep the dog. But I'm much more of a cat person, whereas like Jason he's a dog person. He loves dogs. Now, my point that I brought up to him was, I've paid for the animals that I have. I even paid for the dog. I pay for all the food. I pay for all the litter. And I'm the person who's at home and taking care of them 24/7. So will we ever have another dog? No, because he doesn't live here. So he's not really looking, you know, like he lives here, but he doesn't. He's not really looking after them. Whereas like, will we ever probably have another cat? Yeah, we probably will. Why? Because I'm the person who's at home who does all the work. And he was like, yeah, you know, and I said, and the other part of that kind of peeves me off is like, I'm not your kid, so I kind of like, I'll listen to your side of what you're thinking with this, but I don't really think that I should have to ask permission to go do this as an adult. So yeah, there's a little bit of conflict on the whole thing initially, but long story short, I'm responsible for it, so it'll be fine. So honestly, Brenda, you're home all day. If you're the person who's going to be looking after the cat, doing all the stuff with the cat, paying for the cat, I would just go and do it. Oh God, hold on. We have like way behind. Allergic. Ask for forgiveness. No, yeah, sue. And that is much more my jam. I was actually like, I was shocked when he was like, no, I decided, like, I changed my mind. And it was just like, whoa, I'm sorry. Like, because I would never, like, I mean, you know the dynamic of Jason and I and all this stuff. Like, when am I ever like, no, I don't think, no, you're not going and doing that. Like, those are the words that never fall out of my mouth. Have there been times where I've said, I think that perhaps is maybe a poor choice? Yes, I have. But have I ever been like, no, you know, about something he wanted to do? Even if it was a really bad idea, he's still gone ahead and done it. And I've always just been like, okay, likes lessons the hard way. Brenda, the people who will buy their kids. Yeah, and that's the next piece. After Christmas, there will be a whole influx. Yeah, see, Brenda, if Sean has to do the litter box, then I think it needs to be Sean's call. I do the litter box too, or Aislinn does the litter box. So again, he's not responsible for anything. The only thing I actually ever did was pay Katniss's jail bill when she got outside, and she was caught by animal control. Laura, I love cats, but not sure we'll ever have one. Think our dog will be the last pet we have because we do want to travel in kennels or so. Yeah, they're crazy here. I'm lucky that Brenda comes and looks after them. Our dog is a rescue, so she absolutely hates getting in the vehicle. Like when I had to haul her to the vet the one time for them to give her the vaccine that they can't give at the SPC, I think it's rabies. It took me like 40 minutes to get her from my front to my vehicle and into it. She was like a cat trying to push her through the door. She was like, and I got her in there, and Aislinn was holding her and petting her and talking to her. And I mean, she was already foaming from the mouth and like heavy breathing, and it was horrible. And I was like, yeah, like I don't think I'll ever try to put this dog in a vehicle again, like ever. Whereas our cat, we took our cat to Vancouver Island with us when Serica was born. Like it's so much easier. And for the majority of the time, like this past year, we went to New Orleans, and that was like the big trip. But like a dog, you can't even leave them to go to Edmonton overnight. But if you have a cat, like leaving your cat for 24 hours, I've never had an issue leaving a cat for 24 hours. As long as they had like confirmed access to water, food, and a litter box, they were fine. Dog, not so much. So she hated it. Sorry, Brenda, you can hate me. I'm okay with that. But yeah, no, I would not. Well, that would be like if he decided he was coming home with anything, right? He decides he wants a pet snake. Oh, by the way, Brenda, you have to clean its cage, right? You would be like, like if that's not something you want to do, that wouldn't be fair. So if I was asked, if Jason was responsible to like pay for anything or clean anything or do anything, I wouldn't do it, but he's not. I'm 100% responsible for it. Poor dog. Ours is a rescue too, but she loves car. Yeah, no, she just hates it. Even when I still take her out the door, Laura, like if you take her out the door to walk her and you walk towards the vehicles, she like literally puts her like digs her claws in and like puts her like brakes on and doesn't want to go. Having fallen in love. Oh, okay. Well, you can hate me for makeup too. I'm okay with that also. So yeah, no, like actually I don't mind snakes, but if he was like, oh, well, he brought Katniss home. We had this conversation. We own our cat because of Jason. He got her for free on a buy and sell from a woman who wanted to, actually I think I'm going to put a little bit of this on first because my lips are super dry. He buy and sell, the woman wanted to get rid of her. So he's like, he called me when he already had her in the vehicle. He had her in the vehicle. And he's like, oh, she's so sweet. And he doesn't like cats. So I was just like, he's like, she's laying on me. She's so sweet. And I'm like, you're driving and she's laying on you? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's not normal for a cat. Like cats are usually like underneath the seat, like gagging. Like that's what a cat's like when you're driving. Especially a cat you just met, like really odd. So he gets her home. I'm like 30 some weeks pregnant with Serica. He puts her down on the ground and she takes the classic in heat cat stance. I'm like, she's in heat. That's why the woman wanted to get rid of her. So she told her name was Chloe, told him that she was spayed, which obviously she wasn't, because cats can go into heat when they're spayed, but it's incredibly rare. I was like, chances are good there's no incision on this cat's belly. And then he told him that she had all of her initial vaccines, so like her rabies and the big things at least, right? Called Bear Creek, because that's apparently where she went, and asked them. I was just like, so we just adopted this cat online because this woman wanted to get rid of her, and apparently her name's Chloe, and I knew the woman's name. She didn't tell us her name, but her name was her email, so like we figured out who her name was pretty quick. And I said, like, they said that she's spayed. They said that she has her vaccines. And the people were like, we have no record of this. And they're like, you're positive she said it was this? And it was like right in the email to Jason where she said, yeah, I've taken her here. She's spayed. She has all her shots. And they're like, how fast can you spay a cat? Because she's in heat. And they're like, has she been exposed to a male? I'm like, no idea. I said to Jason, were there other cats in the house? He's like, yeah. I'm like, awesome. And they're like, well, we can do it like right then. You know, it'll cost you more because she's more likely to bleed. But, you know, it's a little bit more complicated procedure. But they're like, yeah, long story short, we can do it right away. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, when is your first available booking? And they're like, in 20 days. So we had a cat that was in heat until she was done. By the time I took her in, she was no longer in heat. They checked her for an incision. They're like, no, she hasn't been spayed. So whatever. All said and done, $500 to get her spayed and to get all of her initial shots done. And then the best piece is, about 6 months later, the woman sent us an email and was like, yeah, so can I have my cat back? I really miss her. Yeah, my email back was not very nice. Not very nice at all. Not even close to nice. Because it was it wasn't even a big hell no. It was like, yeah, you suck. But he got her. And then really the kids picked the dog. Oh. And he actually did the, or did I think actually I have the application for the dog. But he was like, yeah, we get a dog and, you know, I can go walking with it and it'll be positive. And so I have never actually been the person who has picked an animal. And I need to get off because I just got a phone call. But because I've got silver, because I've did gray, I'm filling it in with plush. Just lip liner with a little bit of lip bonbon to make it soft. It almost makes it like a really cool nudie lipstick kind of feeling. It's kind of neat. I bet it didn't say, no, it didn't say you suck. Thanks, cat impression. I'm awesome like that. I'm awesome like that, Sue. Yeah, that's what the cat sounds like. It was horrible. It's horrible. She was so in heat. Yeah, it was horrible, but she's cute now. Anyways, I'm going to go because Jay just called me and I had to cancel it because I'm here. But I hope you guys have the very best Thursday. I'll talk to you later and let me know if you want to know any more about Happy because this is like I think it's my favorite of the mats.